Well, it's turning out to be, or has turned out to be, a good day for the bulls, especially given the fact that the Nifty is now at 9,143, which also means that you are looking at the bulls moving back towards the 9,200 mark, which will most certainly be a very good news. So on the whole, given the fact that we are looking at so much positivity, how is the intraday movement been for the Nifty movement?
So it's been a good session of trade, importantly because it's a day ahead of FNO expiry, and also because we had this press conference by Uday Kotak at 3:30. That's when the market shut, which turned out to be quite a damn squib, Agam, for that matter. We did expect some big bang announcements coming in, but all that we saw was just about the bank planning to double its customer base and also launching a zero balance account with no charges for all its digital transaction. So for the day of the trade for Nifty, it was a good session of trade. It was a steady session of trade. After a good start, we did see markets building on to the gains and ending well above that 9,100 mark for second consecutive session that we saw, Agam. So that was in terms of Nifty performance for the day. Also the India VIX, that's the fear gauge, dipped around 0.40% for the day. Less volatility, more gains. How is the action in FNO space for that?
Sure. So it's it's a little bit of a surprise that we haven't seen too much movement in the India Volatility Index, especially given the fact that we're just 1 day away from expiry. Well, what's really happened is that firstly, when it comes to Nifty rollovers, they currently stand at 53%, but this is not the final number. We'll be waiting for the power copy to come and give us the final number for that. However, these rollovers are slightly above what we've seen when compared to the previous 3-month average. That said, let's take a look at what's happened in the options market today. There were only two options which were extremely active today. One was the 9,100 call and the other one was the 9,100 put. But that brings me to maximum open interest, and now that has shifted from 8,800 put to 9,100, which means that the base is shifting upwards, and that's the indication. On the other hand, we are likely to see more resistance building up as far as the 9,200 is concerned. But considering the fact that we have seen some amount of buying today, well, it's a possibility that this level could be taken out in the near term over the span of the next 4 or 5 sessions. That said, on the whole, given the fact that we have seen some longs and the fact that the volatility index is down, well, it gives you an indication that tomorrow's expiry it tends to be towards the positive.
Moving on to the movers and gainers side of the game, Nifty large cap moving stocks were Bharti Airtel, State Bank of India, HCL Technology and ICICI Bank, which all ended the day in gains of around 1 to 5.5% that we saw. Yes, financials were up. We saw State Bank of India, ICICI Bank all ending the day with gains of around 2%. Bharti Infratel also ended up with 5.5% gain. This is after the promoter Bharti Airtel completed the transfer of part of its stake to wholly owned subsidiary. We also saw gains coming in from Tata Power. On the flip side, we did see some losses for auto stocks, specifically that of Hero MotoCorp and Tata Motors, which ended the day in losses in the range of around 1 to 3% Pharmaceutical stocks too weren't spared for that matter. They ended the day in red with losses of around 1.5%. Auto stock losses came much after the Supreme Court judgment which banned the sale of BS3 compliant vehicles from April 1. Which are the stocks which have likely to be most impacted from this development coming in?
Well, essentially two. One is Ashok Leyland, the other one is Hero MotoCorp. As you mentioned, Hero MotoCorp has sustained the largest among the Nifty counters. The reason behind is that there are about nearly 3 lakh units of Hero MotoCorp which are not BS4 compliant, so that could be an issue going forward. As far as Ashok Leyland is concerned, once again, with respect to the kind of the quantity that is in stages which is still under production, well, that stands around to 12,000 units as against 96,000 units for commercial vehicles. So that's one other place where we are looking at some amount of weakness. So these are the two stocks, and that's also very apparent in the kind of weakness that we've seen in today's day of trade. Otherwise, Maruti and Tata Motors are mostly in the clear, despite the fact that Tata Motors especially, which has some amount of exposure to commercial vehicles. So the reason why we're looking at a lot of weakness in the auto vehicles and in the auto segment today is mostly because of Hero MotoCorp and Ashok Leyland.
Okay. So would you want to move on to the broader space in terms of which were the stocks which were actually taking in the moving space in the broader segment? If you could
Sure.
address
So,
that.
when it comes to the market breadth, comes to the advanced decline ratio, we're looking at one gainer for one loser. With respect to gainers, we're looking at gains in Kolte Patil, Triveni Engineering, Group Finance. Edelweiss Financial is one of the biggest movers, and it's been, it's seen a lot of strength in recent times. We have Greaves Cotton, Muthoot Finance, as well as Kalpataru Power, all gaining well over 7%. With respect to weakness, well, we are looking at Hindustan Zinc declining by 11%. That's followed by Bombay Dyeing, Bharat Financial Inclusion, Godfrey Phillips, Swan Energy, as well as JMT Auto, all losing anywhere between 3 to 3.5%. So on the whole, despite the fact that the market breadth is, very evenly placed between the gainers and losers, it's the gainers which have more momentum in today's day of trade. But that's as far as the equity markets go. We've seen the rupee strengthen further today.
Yes, so apart from a good session of trade for equity markets, rupee for that matter strengthened for third consecutive session that we saw, and it was almost trading around the October 28, 2015 level that we can see in this chart right now. It dipped below that 65 per dollar mark that you can see here, and it's almost around the 2015 level that we're now talking about. So that's that in terms of rupee. A good session of trade for equity market, and also a good session of trade for rupee, where the rupee strengthened for third consecutive session of trade. Agam.
Absolutely. So like she said, we're looking at a good session, but if it's going to be another intense day, at least with respect to the volatility, is given the fact that we are looking at the March expiry. But that is all that we have for today. Stay tuned in a Bloomberg Quint, and we'll see you tomorrow.